She thought human mating positions were myths until he showed her the real thing. The emergency lights cast a dim red glow across the control room as Liam Harrison ran another diagnostic on the outpost's failing power system. Outside, the winds of Frosta howled like wounded beasts, hurling ice crystals against the reinforced windows with enough force to leave tiny scratches on the outer layer. Thermal core malfunction in sectors 3 through 7, announced the calm, automated voice of the station's AI. Remaining functional heating limited to primary quarters. Liam sighed, his breath visible even inside the station. Wonderful. Just what we needed. He ran a hand through his dark hair, now flecked with early gray at the temples despite being only 34. 6 years of leading expeditions to the most inhospitable corners of the galaxy had aged him prematurely, but his green eyes still held the spark of adventure that had drawn him to the stars. How long until the backup systems can be repaired? The melodic voice came from behind him, each word flowing into the next like water over smooth stones. Nylara Tavosh stood in the doorway, her violet skin seeming to capture what little light remained in the room. As the leading xenobiologist from Lumira, she was the reason they were on this frozen hellscape to begin with, studying the extremophile organisms that somehow thrived beneath Frosta's ice sheets. Her glowing blue eyes, pupilless but remarkably expressive, fixed on him with scientific precision. 3 days minimum, Liam replied, trying not to notice how her traditional Lumerian inner heating garment, a thin white bodysuit made of some material unknown to human science, left little of her curvy figure to the imagination. The parts we need are in the storage unit, but with the storm, he gestured to the windows where nothing was visible beyond the swirling white. I see. Nylara's silver hair, worn in an intricate braid that reached her waist, caught the emergency lighting as she moved toward the console. And the temperature will continue to drop in the uninhabited sections? Yes, the AI is consolidating all remaining power to keep one room habitable. Liam checked the schematics again. Looks like that's my quarters. It's the smallest space, so it's the most efficient to heat. An awkward silence fell between them. They had been working together for 3 weeks, but always with the buffer of other team members, all of whom had departed on the supply shuttle just hours before the storm hit, leaving only the expedition leader and the alien scientist behind to finalize the research. I suppose, Nylara began, her voice carrying the slight harmonic undertone characteristic of her species, that sharing accommodations is the logical solution. Liam tried to keep his expression neutral. Yes, logical. He closed the diagnostic program. We should gather whatever supplies we need before the corridors get too cold. 30 minutes later, they had transformed Liam's quarters into a makeshift command center and living space. Emergency rations, research tablets, and communication equipment were neatly arranged on his desk. A privacy screen had been erected near the small bathroom area, though Liam wasn't sure if Lumerians shared human concepts of modesty. Your species is remarkably adaptable, Nylara observed, sitting cross-legged on the edge of his bed, her back perfectly straight in that distinctive Lumerian posture. On Lumira, such improvisation would be considered impulsive. On Earth, we call it survival, Liam replied with a half-smile. He hesitated before adding, There's only one bed. I can sleep on the floor. Nylara tilted her head, her bioluminescent eyes blinking in what he had come to recognize as confusion. Why would you do that? Body heat conservation is maximized through proximity. Is this not taught in your survival training? Liam felt heat rising to his face that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. It is, but humans sometimes have different customs about sharing sleeping space. Fascinating. Nylara leaned forward slightly. Perhaps you could explain these customs while we wait for the storm to pass. Outside, the wind screamed against the station, Inside, Liam wondered if being trapped in a blizzard might not be the most dangerous part of this expedition after all. The night cycle had officially begun, though on Frosta, darkness was merely a deeper shade of twilight during this season. Liam sat on the edge of the bed, unpacking the last of their emergency supplies, while Nylara studied the storm patterns on her tablet. The meteorological data suggests this system will persist for at least 72 hours, she said, her melodic voice tinged with concern. Longer than your initial estimate? Liam nodded, unwrapping a thermal blanket. The AI recalculated based on the latest atmospheric readings. We'll need to conserve more power than I thought. Nylara set her tablet aside, her luminous blue eyes following his movements. You mentioned human customs earlier, about sharing space. She adjusted her position, silver hair cascading over one violet shoulder. On Lumira, physical proximity is practical, not complicated. It's not always complicated for us either, Liam explained, trying to focus on arranging their supplies rather than on how the emergency lighting caught the subtle shimmer in her skin. It depends on the relationship between the people involved. Relationship. Nylara repeated the word carefully, as if tasting it. Your species categorizes connections differently than mine. We have collaborative units, reproductive partnerships, and knowledge-sharing collectives. She paused. But I've read about human concepts like romance and passion in your literature. They seem imprecise. Liam couldn't help but smile. They're meant to be. Explain, she requested, leaning forward with that intense scientific curiosity he'd come to admire during their expedition. Well, Liam began, settling back against the wall, humans don't just form connections for practical reasons. We're drawn to others because of how they make us feel, excited, calm, understood, challenged. He searched for the right words. It's not always logical. Nylara's brow furrowed, the tiny bioluminescent freckles across her cheekbones brightening slightly with her concentration. But how do you determine compatibility without objective criteria? Chemistry, Liam said simply. Ah, biochemical reactions. This I understand. Nylara nodded, seemingly relieved to find familiar scientific ground. Liam laughed softly. Not exactly. Well, partly yes. There are biochemical components, pheromones, hormones, neurological responses, but it's more than that. He gestured vaguely. It's about connection, something that can't be measured. The temperature display on the wall blinked, showing another 2-degree drop in the corridor outside their room. The heating system hummed, as it worked harder to maintain their sanctuary. Your species embraces inefficiency, Nylara observed, but there was no judgment in her tone, only fascination. On Lumira, our partnerships are determined by genetic compatibility, shared intellectual pursuits, and resource optimization. That sounds, Liam searched for a diplomatic word, practical. It is. Nylara shifted, drawing her knees up to her chest in a surprisingly human gesture. But there are no poems about it, no songs. Her eyes met his, unblinking. Humans create art about their connections. This suggests there is value in your approach that my people may not understand. The admission surprised him. Most Lumirians he'd encountered were convinced of the superiority of their highly structured society. Are there no exceptions on Lumira? No one who chooses partners based on feelings? Liam asked. Nylara was quiet for a moment, her gaze drifting to the window where ice crystals formed intricate patterns. There are stories, she finally said, her voice softer. Ancient tales of Lumirians who formed bonds outside of designated parameters. They are considered cautionary myths, examples of irrational behavior. She looked back at him. But I have always found them intriguing. The room seemed smaller suddenly, more intimate. The storm's howl faded to background noise as Liam became acutely aware of the space between them on the bed, not quite a meter, yet somehow vast and microscopic simultaneously. So, Nylara continued, breaking the momentary silence, when humans share sleeping quarters, it implies a romantic connection? Not necessarily, Liam clarified. Friends do it, family members, colleagues in emergency situations like ours. He smiled reassuringly. It's just that for adults who are potentially compatible, it can have different implications. And, are we? Nylara asked, her head tilting slightly. Compatible? The directness of the question caught Liam off guard. He wasn't sure if she was asking from a scientific perspective or something else entirely. Biologically? I don't know, he answered honestly. Our species evolved on planets 400 light-years apart. That wasn't my question, Nylara said, her voice barely audible above the hum of the heating system. The temperature display blinked. Again. The storm raged on, and in the last heated room of the outpost, something subtle shifted between them. A curiosity that had nothing to do with science and everything to do with the unknown territory between two worlds. Morning arrived without distinction on Frosta, the perpetual twilight merely shifting hues as the planet rotated. Liam woke to find himself alone in the bed, momentarily disoriented until he spotted Nylara by the small viewport, her silhouette, outlined against the swirling snow beyond. She stood perfectly still, a meditative posture he recognized from observing her morning rituals during their expedition. The storm intensified overnight, she said without turning, somehow sensing his wakefulness. The outpost's external sensors are registering temperatures of -78 degrees. Liam checked the room's climate control. We're holding steady in here, but the corridor temperature has dropped another 5 degrees. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed, running a hand through his sleep-tousled hair. Did you sleep? At all? Lumerians require less rest than humans, Nylara replied, finally turning to face him. I entered a regenerative state for approximately 2 hours. Something about her seemed different this morning. The luminescence beneath her violet skin pulsed with subtle patterns he hadn't noticed before, like bioluminescent waves beneath the surface of an alien ocean. You're glowing more than usual, Liam observed, immediately regretting the potential awkwardness of the comment. Rather than take offense, Nylara glanced down at her arms with scientific interest. Yes, a physiological response to the extended cold. My body is generating additional bioluminescence to supplement the heating properties of my garment. She moved closer, sitting beside him on the bed. May I? Before he could ask what she meant, she reached out, her slender fingers hovering centimeters from his forearm. Liam nodded, and she gently placed her hand on his skin. Fascinating, she murmured. Your temperature regulation is so different from ours. The blood vessels near your surface. I can feel them dilating in response to my touch. Liam was acutely aware of the warmth radiating from her fingers, warmer than he would have expected, almost like a gentle electric current flowing between them. That's normal for humans, he explained, his voice sounding rougher than intended. Our circulatory system redirects blood flow based on external stimuli. External stimuli, she repeated thoughtfully, her fingers tracing a path up to his wrist. Like touch? Yes. Liam swallowed. Among other things. Nylara's exploration continued to his palm, her touch feather-light. On Lumira, physical contact serves primarily functional purposes. Medical assessment, formal greetings, reproductive necessity. Her eyes met his, their blue glow intensifying. But humans touch for pleasure? For connection, Liam clarified, though he didn't pull his hand away. Touch is a form of communication for us. What does this communicate? Nylara asked, interlacing her fingers with his in a tentative approximation of hand-holding she must have observed among the human crew members. Liam felt his pulse quicken. Curiosity, interest, maybe affection. And this? She reached up, with her free hand, hesitating briefly before her fingertips made contact with his cheek. The outpost's emergency lighting flickered momentarily, casting shadows across her features. In that instant, Liam saw beyond the alien biology, beyond violet skin and luminous eyes, to the person seeking understanding. "That's more intimate," he said quietly. "More personal." The temperature alert chimed, indicating another drop in the corridor outside. They were becoming more isolated by the hour, the cold creating an island of warmth that contained only them. "Humans have many forms of touch," Liam continued, emboldened by her curiosity. "Each with different meanings." "Show me," Nylara requested, her voice carrying that harmonic undertone that intensified with emotion. "I want to understand." Liam hesitated, weighing professional boundaries against the genuine connection forming between them. "Are you sure?" "My people value knowledge above all else," she replied. "This is knowledge I cannot gain from data files or observation alone." Slowly, telegraphing his movements, Liam reached out and tucked a strand of silver hair behind her ear, his fingers brushing against the delicate ridges that framed her face. Nylara's eyes widened slightly, the glow intensifying. "This is how we might show affection," he explained softly. "Casual, but personal. It produces an unusual sensation," she observed. "A pleasant one." Emboldened, Liam gently took both her hands in his. "This is how we often begin more significant connections, palm to palm." Nylara studied their joined hands with fascination. "Your heart rate has increased by approximately 23%, she noted, "as has mine." "That's part of it too," Liam acknowledged, "the physical responses." "What else?" she asked, her scientific curiosity now blended with something more personal. Liam hesitated only briefly before answering. "There's also this." He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to withdraw if she wished. When she remained, still eyes wide with anticipation rather than alarm, he gently pressed his lips to hers. The kiss lasted only seconds, but Liam felt the subtle electric current of her bioluminescence throughout his entire body, like touching a star without being burned. When he pulled back, Nylara's freckles were pulsing with bright blue light. "That," she whispered, "was not in any of our research files on human behavior." "Some things have to be experienced," Liam replied, equally affected. Outside, the storm raged unabated. Inside, the temperature continued to rise. The outpost's systems beeped a warning as external temperatures plunged further. Ice formations grew along the edges of the viewport like crystalline fingers reaching inward. Within their heated sanctuary, however, Nylara and Liam barely noticed. "This human ritual," Nylara said, her fingertips still resting on her lips where Liam had kissed her. "It is called kissing, correct? I've read descriptions, but they failed to capture the sensory complexity." Liam smiled, still holding one of her hands. "Descriptions rarely do. On Lumira, our scientific education includes comprehensive biological understanding, but nothing of this." She searched for the word intimacy. The bioluminescent patterns beneath her violet skin pulsed in rhythm with her quickened heartbeat. "I find myself curious about other human expressions of connection." The request hung in the air between them, fraught with meaning. Liam studied her face, looking for any sign of hesitation. "Nylara," he began carefully, "I don't want you to feel that this is an experiment or an obligation because we're trapped here." "I understand the distinction," she replied, her melodic voice resolute. "This is not scientific inquiry, though I approach it with similar curiosity." She moved closer, the subtle scent of her, something like ozone and sweet blossoms, filling his senses. I want to know what it means to connect as humans do, not as a Lumerian scientist observing, but as myself. The last word carried weight. Liam understood immediately. On her world, individualism was secondary to collective purpose. This moment represented something profound for her, a step outside everything she had been taught. We can take this slowly, Liam suggested, reaching up to trace the luminescent freckles across her cheekbone. They brightened at his touch, following his fingertips like stars responding to gravity. Time is relative, Nylara whispered, leaning into his touch, and currently limited by meteorological conditions. Liam laughed softly. That's the most scientific way anyone has ever suggested. He trailed off, suddenly uncertain. Nylara completed his thought with unexpected directness. Physical intimacy, she said. Is that the term? Yes, Liam acknowledged. Among others. Show me, she requested again, but this time her voice carried no trace of academic interest. The harmonic undertones of her speech pattern resonated with something unmistakable in any species: desire. Their second kiss was different from the first, less tentative, more exploratory. Nylara's initial stillness quickly gave way to intuitive response, her body temperature rising noticeably against him. The bioluminescence beneath her skin intensified, casting a soft blue glow that pulsed with each quickened heartbeat. Your physiology responds differently than mine, she observed between kisses, her hands discovering the contours of his shoulders. But the underlying principles appear compatible, very compatible. Liam agreed, his voice rough with emotion as he guided her closer. What followed was a dance of discovery. Two beings from distant worlds learning each other's bodies through touch, through whispered guidance, through the universal language of response. Nylara's silver hair spilled across the pillow like liquid moonlight, her eyes shifting from blue to indigo as Liam showed her the ways humans expressed their most intimate connections. The thin white garment that had maintained her internal temperature now lay discarded beside his own clothing. In its place, they found warmth in each other, skin against skin, breath mingling, heartbeats synchronizing despite their different biological rhythms. Your people were right about one thing, Liam murmured against her neck. Body heat conservation is remarkably efficient, Nylara laughed, the sound like musical chimes in the quiet room. An inadequate explanation for what's happening between us. As their bodies joined, the bioluminescence beneath Nylara's skin spread in waves of blue and violet light, casting ethereal patterns across their entwined forms. The phenomenon was breathtaking, ripples of starlight that followed each touch, each movement, each shared breath. Is this normal? Liam asked in wonder, as the lights pulsed brighter. No, Nylara whispered against his ear. Nothing about this is normal. That's what makes it extraordinary. Time lost meaning as they explored this new universe between them. The storm outside faded to background noise, irrelevant to the world they created within their small, heated room. They discovered that despite evolving on planets hundreds of light years apart, their bodies found harmony in the ancient rhythms of desire. In the final moments of their union, Nylara's bioluminescence reached its zenith, a supernova of blue-white, light that briefly illuminated the entire room before slowly fading to a warm, steady glow that seemed to encompass them both in its radiance. Afterward, they lay tangled together beneath the thermal blankets, neither willing to break the spell. With analysis or explanation, some experiences, they silently agreed, transcended scientific understanding. The myths on my world, Nylara finally said, her head resting on his chest as she listened to his heartbeat, speak of ancient Lumerians who could share their light with others, a merging of energy that changed both beings forever. Her fingers traced patterns on his skin. I always believed they were metaphorical teachings. Liam pressed a kiss to her forehead. Maybe your ancestors understood something that got lost along the way. Perhaps, she agreed softly. Or perhaps they simply encountered humans. Outside, unnoticed by either of them, the storm had begun to abate. The silence woke Liam first, the absence of howling wind that had been their constant companion for days. He blinked in the dim light, momentarily disoriented by the weight of Nylara's sleeping form draped across his chest. Her silver hair spread like a metallic fan across his skin. The outpost's systems had automatically adjusted to the changing. Conditions and a status report flashed on the small screen by the bed. Storm front dissipating. External temperature rising. Communications partially restored. Reality intruded with unwelcome persistence. Their isolation was ending. Soon the expedition team would return, the damaged systems would be repaired, and the careful structure of their professional relationship would reassert itself. Or would it? Nylara stirred against him, her bioluminescence dimmed to a soft glow in sleep. Even now, hours after their intimacy, subtle waves of light pulsed where their skin connected, a phenomenon he suspected was unprecedented in Lemurian physiology. Her eyes opened, immediately alert in that way unique to her species. "The storm has passed," she observed, showing no inclination to move from her position. "Yes," Liam confirmed, his hand automatically finding the small of her back, tracing the delicate ridges along her spine. "Communications are coming back online." A moment of silence stretched between them, heavy with unasked questions. What happens now? Nylara finally voiced the thought occupying both their minds. Her scientific precision remained, but vulnerability threaded through her harmonic tones. On Lumira, physical coupling would be documented, analyzed for optimization, and generally not repeated unless for reproductive purposes. Liam couldn't help but smile. "That sounds very efficient. And very empty," she added quietly, surprising him. "At least, it seems that way now." She sat up slowly, the thermal blanket pooling around her waist. In the growing daylight filtering. Through the viewport, her violet skin shimmered with subtle iridescence. The storm had left behind a transformed landscape, jagged ice formations catching the light like massive prisms, creating rainbows that danced across the walls of their room. "Beautiful," Liam murmured, though his eyes remained on Nylara rather than the spectacle outside. She met his gaze with uncharacteristic uncertainty. "I find myself experiencing conflict between what I was taught and what I now know." Her fingers intertwined with his. "My people value knowledge above all else, yet we have systematically eliminated this form of knowing from our society. This connection, this feeling," Liam supplied. "Yes," Nylara nodded. "The biochemical reality is undeniable. My hormonal balance has shifted. The bioluminescent response is unprecedented in our medical literature." She gestured to where their hands joined, where blue light still pulsed between them. "But the experience transcends its physical components." Liam sat up beside her, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "That's what humans have been, trying to explain for millennia, why we write poems and songs about it, even when the scientific explanation exists." The communication system chimed, indicating an incoming transmission. Liam reluctantly reached for the control panel, keeping his other hand linked with Nylara's. "Outpost 7, this is Transport Vessel Horizon. Do you copy? We're preparing for return with repair crews. ETA 6 hours. Reality intruding further." Liam acknowledged the transmission with professional efficiency, providing a status report that mentioned nothing of what had transpired between the outpost's only occupants. When the channel closed, silence fell again, heavier than before. 6 hours, Nylara repeated, "and then we return to our designated roles." Is that what you want? Liam asked, searching her luminous eyes. Want, she echoed thoughtfully. Another concept my people have disciplined out of our vocabulary. We speak of optimization, of function, of purpose. Her gaze dropped to their joined hands, where the light continued to pulse between them. But yes, I find that I want. For the first time in my existence, I understand the power of that word. Liam felt something expand in his chest. Hope, possibility, future. The Xenocultural Exchange Program is accepting new applications, he said carefully. They're looking for scientists willing to spend extended time on Earth, studying human society firsthand. That would be a significant deviation from my assigned research path, Nylara observed, but her eyes had brightened. My collective would question such a radical redirection. And what would Nylara question? Liam asked gently. Not the scientist, not the Lumerian, but you? She was quiet for a long moment, the bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin shifting in complex waves that seemed to reflect her internal deliberation. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a certainty he had previously heard only when she discussed scientific facts. I would question the wisdom of ignoring empirical evidence, she said, a smile forming on her lips. The data clearly indicates that further research is required, long-term immersive research. Liam laughed, pulling her closer. Is that your way of saying you want to see where this goes? Inelegantly phrased, but accurate. Nylara's smile widened. Though I suspect my research methodology may be considered unorthodox by Lumerian standards. And by human standards? Liam asked, his lips hovering near hers. That, she whispered, closing the distance between them, is what I intend to discover. Outside, the frozen world of Frosta glittered beneath alien stars. Inside, warmth bloomed between two beings who had found something neither had been looking for. A connection that defied distance, biology, and the cold logic of separate worlds. 6 hours remained before the ship arrived. 6 hours to begin planning a journey neither had anticipated, one that would lead them across the stars, but more importantly, toward each other. In the last heated room of a remote outpost, they had discovered a truth known to lovers across countless worlds, that sometimes the greatest discoveries happen not in laboratories or on expeditions, but in the unexpected space between two hearts, beating in newfound synchrony.